Something shifted a few moments ago, and you felt it, even if you could not explain why. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like a quiet ripple passing through your heart without permission. And now, here you are, trying to understand what that feeling meant, why your chest felt heavier for no clear reason, why your thoughts suddenly drifted to someone you hadn't planned to think about. Pause here, and feel this carefully. Have you ever noticed how certain connections don't need words? How sometimes, before anything actually happens in the physical world, your soul already knows. Don't skip this moment. Stay till the end. Something important is waiting for you, something that will start making sense of that unexplainable pull you just experienced. Because what unfolded was not what it seemed on the surface. It looked like a sudden disruption, an unexpected moment that caught them off guard. But this was not about harm, not about loss, not about fear. It was something deeper, something symbolic, something that reached beyond the visible world and into the quiet space where your connection lives. And here's where it begins to unfold. There was a moment, just minutes ago, when your soulmate felt an intense emotional impact. Not physical in the way people might assume, but energetic, sudden, sharp, almost like something inside them paused, like time briefly slowed down around their thoughts. They didn't understand it either. They couldn't explain why their mind went silent, why their heart started searching for something, or someone, and without realizing it, they thought of you. Not casually, not briefly, but with a depth that surprised even them. It wasn't planned. It wasn't triggered by anything obvious. It just happened. Like a signal crossing an invisible bridge, reaching from their world into yours. Take a breath, because this is where it becomes even more meaningful. That moment you felt earlier? That slight shift in your energy, that quiet emotional pull. It was not random. It was the echo of what they experienced. A reflection. A connection that doesn't need distance, time, or explanation. But why now? Why did this happen so suddenly, so unexpectedly? Because something inside them is changing. Something they have been avoiding. Something they have been holding back. Something they thought they could keep hidden a little longer, is beginning to surface. And when truth begins to rise, it doesn't knock gently. It arrives in moments like this, unexpected, intense, impossible to ignore. And here's the part that most people never realize. When someone is deeply connected to you, their turning points become your signals. That sudden emotional shock they felt, it wasn't meant to harm them. It was meant to wake them, to interrupt the pattern they were stuck in, to make them pause, and finally look at what they've been avoiding all along. You. Yes, you. Because beneath everything, beneath all the silence, all the distance, all the confusion, there has always been something unfinished between you two, something unspoken, something that never truly faded, no matter how much time passed. And in that moment, just minutes ago, they felt it, not as a memory, but as something alive, something present, something that refuses to disappear. Stay with this feeling, because what they experienced wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning of a realization, a shift that will slowly start changing the way they see everything, including you. But here's the question that lingers. Why did it feel so intense? Why did it come out of nowhere, without warning, without preparation? Because sometimes, the universe doesn't whisper. Sometimes, it pauses everything for just a second, long enough for someone to finally feel what they've been running from. And in that stillness they felt you. Not your face, not your voice, but your presence, your energy. The part of you that never left, even when everything else seemed distant. And now, Something inside them is unsettled. Not in a negative way, but in a way that makes them think, reflect, question everything they thought they understood about their feelings, about their choices, about the path they've been on. Because this moment wasn't random. It was precise, timed, meant to happen exactly when it did. And as you sit here, listening, trying to piece together why this message feels so personal, so strangely accurate, you're starting to realize something too, aren't you? That connection you tried to ignore. It's still there. It never disappeared. It was just waiting. Waiting for the right moment to rise again, not loudly, not forcefully, but in a way that you couldn't ignore anymore. And this is only the beginning of what is about to unfold. Because what happens next will not come in a way you expect. It won't be obvious. It won't be immediate, but it will be undeniable. And in the next part, you'll start to see what this moment is quietly leading toward, and why their sudden emotional shift is only the first signal of something much bigger about to reveal itself. There's a silence forming around them right now, and it doesn't feel empty. It feels heavy with meaning, like something is about to be understood for the first time. They didn't move immediately after that moment. They paused. Not because they were confused, but because something inside them finally asked a question they had been avoiding for far too long. And the strange part is, the answer didn't come from logic. It came from a feeling they could no longer ignore. Stay with this. Because what's unfolding now is quieter than you expect, but far more powerful than anything loud. They tried to shake it off at first. They told themselves it was just a passing thought, just a random emotional wave. But the more they tried to return to normal, the more that feeling stayed. Not overwhelming, just persistent. Like a soft voice that refuses to disappear. And then something unexpected happened. They remembered a moment with you. Not a big moment. Not something dramatic. Just something simple, almost forgotten. But suddenly, it felt different. Deeper. As if that memory carried something they had missed before. Something they were only now able to feel. Pause here for a second. Have you ever looked back at something and realized you didn't fully understand it when it was happening? That's where they are right now. Because that emotional shock from earlier didn't just wake them up, it opened a door. A door to memories they had placed in the background, feelings they had minimized, truths they had quietly avoided. And now, those pieces are coming back together. Not all at once, not clearly, but enough to shift something inside them. Don't skip this moment, because something important is forming. They are starting to see a pattern, a realization that what they felt for you was never as simple as they tried to make it. It wasn't just timing, it wasn't just circumstances, it wasn't something that could be easily explained or dismissed. It was real, and that truth is becoming harder for them to ignore. But here's where it gets even more interesting. They haven't said anything yet, not to you, not to anyone, because what they're feeling right now is still unfolding, still shaping itself, still trying to find its own clarity, and deep down, they know that once they acknowledge it fully, everything will change. So they sit with it, they replay moments, they question decisions, they begin to wonder. What if I misunderstood something that actually mattered? And this question, it doesn't leave them easily, because it leads to another one. What if I walked away from something that was never meant to end? Take a breath, because this is the turning point. That moment earlier, the one that felt sudden, intense, almost unexplainable, it wasn't just a feeling, it was a trigger, a shift. A signal that something inside them could no longer stay asleep. And you felt it too, didn't you? Not in words, not in images, but in that quiet pull that made you pause for no clear reason. That's not coincidence. That's connection. And right now, that connection is becoming stronger, not weaker. Even if nothing has been said yet, even if everything still looks the same on the outside, something inside them is moving, slowly but surely, toward a realization they can't avoid much longer. But here's the part they haven't fully faced yet. If what they're feeling is real, if what they're remembering is true, then it means one thing. They may have been wrong about you, about what you meant, about what this connection really was. And accepting that requires something they're not fully ready for yet. Honesty. Not with you, but with themselves. So instead, they stay in that space between knowing and admitting, between feeling and acting, between remembering and reaching out. And that space is where everything is quietly building. Because the more they sit in this realization, the more it grows, the more it asks for attention, the more it refuses to be pushed aside, and sooner or later, they will have to do something about it. But not yet, not in this moment. Right now, it's still unfolding, still becoming clear, still turning into something they won't be able to ignore anymore. And in the next part, you'll begin to understand what finally pushes them out of this silence, and why what they do next won't be small, won't be casual, but something that shifts everything between you in a way you didn't expect. There's a moment approaching, and it doesn't announce itself the way you would expect. It doesn't arrive with noise or urgency, it slips in quietly, almost unnoticed, until suddenly, everything feels different. They reach a point where silence no longer feels safe. Not because something outside is forcing them, but because something inside has grown too strong to stay hidden. That quiet realization, the one that started as a faint feeling, is no longer soft. It's clear now, steady, present in every thought they try to escape. And here's what changes everything. They stop running from it. For the first time in a long time, they allow themselves to sit with the truth without trying to reshape it, without trying to minimize it. And when they do, something clicks into place. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. They begin to understand that what they felt in that moment earlier wasn't confusion, it was clarity arriving all at once. A realization that didn't ask for permission, it simply entered and stayed. Take a breath here. Because this is where everything turns inward. They start to see you, not through the lens of the past, not through assumptions or incomplete understanding, but as you truly are. And this shift, it changes the way they remember everything. Moments that once felt ordinary, now feel meaningful. Words that once seemed simple, now carry weight. Silences that once felt empty, now feel full of things left unsaid. And in that realization, they feel something they didn't expect. Regret. Not heavy or overwhelming, but real enough to stop them for a second. Real enough to make them wonder how they missed something that was always there. Stay with this feeling, because what comes next is not rushed. They don't act immediately. They don't reach out right away. Instead, they go deeper. They begin to ask themselves questions they avoided before, not out of fear, but because now, they genuinely want to understand. What was that connection really trying to show me? Why did it feel different, even when everything around it was uncertain? And most importantly, why does it still feel present, even now? And as these questions settle in, so does the answer. You were never just a moment in their life. You were a turning point. Something that shifted them, even if they didn't recognize it at the time. And now, they do. Don't skip this part, because something important is aligning. The hesitation that once held them back is starting to weaken. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because the truth has become stronger than their doubts. And when truth reaches that point, action is no longer far behind. But here's what makes this moment so different. This time, it's not about impulse. It's not about reacting quickly or trying to fix something instantly. It's about understanding first, and then moving forward with intention. And that changes everything. Because when someone finally sees something clearly, after not seeing it for so long, they don't approach it the same way again. They approach it carefully, honestly, and with a depth they didn't have before. So even though nothing has happened yet on the surface, everything has already begun beneath it. A decision is forming, not fully spoken, not fully acted upon, but real enough that it won't disappear. And you might feel another shift soon. Not as sudden as before, not as sharp, but more steady, more grounded, like something is slowly moving closer instead of just calling out from a distance. Because that's exactly what is happening. They are moving, not physically yet, but emotionally, mentally, toward something they once stepped away from, toward you. And here's the part that most people never see coming. When someone reaches this level of clarity, they don't just return the same way they left. They return differently, with awareness, with understanding, with the ability to say what they couldn't say before, not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't fully know how. And now, they're learning, step by step, quietly, without announcing it, but with a certainty that grows stronger each time they think of you, each time that connection surfaces again, each time they realize it never truly faded. So what happens next isn't sudden. It's inevitable, not forced, not rushed, but natural, like something finally finding its way back to where it always belonged. And in the next part, you'll begin to see the moment where this quiet realization finally turns into something visible, something you can feel not just within, but around you, in a way that leaves no doubt about what is unfolding. There's a shift you won't hear, but you will feel. Not in a dramatic way, not like something suddenly appears in front of you, but like a quiet presence drawing closer, as if something that once felt distant is now slowly stepping into your space again. And this time, it's different. They are no longer questioning what they feel. They are no longer trying to push it aside or explain it away. Something inside them has settled, not into certainty about the future, but into honesty about the present. And that honesty, it changes how they move now. Because when someone finally stops resisting the truth, their actions begin to align with it, even before they fully realize it. Stay with this moment. Because what happens next doesn't arrive loudly. It begins with something small. A thought that lingers longer than usual. A moment where they almost reach out, then pause, not out of fear, but because they want it to be right this time. And that pause, it matters. It shows that this isn't impulsive. It shows that they are no longer reacting, they are choosing. Choosing to understand before they act. Choosing to feel before they speak. Choosing to approach you, not from confusion, but from clarity. And here's where the energy between you begins to change in a way you can't ignore. You might notice it subtly. A sudden calm where there used to be restlessness. A sense of quiet expectation, like something is about to happen, even if you don't know when. Maybe even a moment where your thoughts drift toward them again, not forcefully, just naturally, like a familiar rhythm returning. That's not random. That's alignment. Because when two energies begin moving toward each other again, the space between them starts to shift first. And right now, that space is changing. But listen carefully. They are still moving slowly, not because they are unsure anymore, but because they understand the weight of what they are about to do. Because reaching out now means more than just a message. It means acknowledging everything they once avoided. It means stepping into a truth that cannot be taken back once it is spoken. And that's why they are taking their time, not to delay, but to do it right. Take a breath here. Because something important is forming. They are replaying their words before they ever say them. They are thinking about how you might feel, how you might respond, what this moment could mean for both of you. And for the first time, they are not just thinking about themselves. They are thinking about you, fully, deeply, honestly. And that changes everything. Because when someone begins to consider your heart with that level of care, their next step is never careless. It is intentional, meaningful, and impossible to ignore when it finally arrives. Don't skip this. Because this is where the unseen becomes seen. Not all at once, not in a way that overwhelms, but in a way that feels natural, like something that was always meant to happen finally finding its moment. You may not know the exact second it will appear, but you will recognize it when it does, not by what is said, but by how it feels, clear, steady, real, and in that moment, you will understand why everything unfolded the way it did, why there was distance, why there was silence, why there were questions without answers, because all of it was leading here, to a moment where nothing needs to be forced, nothing needs to be chased, nothing needs to be questioned the way it once was, just understood. And here's the final realization that quietly settles in. What you felt earlier, that sudden, unexplainable shift. It was not the end of something, it was the beginning of something returning, but in a form that is more aware, more grounded, more real than before. So as you sit with this feeling now, don't rush it, don't try to predict it, just allow it to unfold, the way it's meant to, because what is moving toward you is not coming from confusion anymore, it's coming from clarity, and when clarity arrives, it doesn't disappear again, it stays, and what comes after this will not feel like uncertainty, it will feel like recognition, like something your heart already knew. Finally standing in front of you, without distance, without silence, without anything left unsaid.